a humble worker, forced to marry a feared tycoon, became the most powerful woman suddenly. The factory's clanging machinery hammered into the cold autumn air, as Elena Carter wiped the sweat and grime from her forehead. Her breath came out in quick, visible puffs. The orange dusk was fading fast, swallowing the small Midwestern town in shadows. Elena's feet ached. Her hands were rough, cracked from years of endless shifts. Debt hung over her family like a dark cloud, heavier every month. Tonight, like every night, she felt trapped, locked inside a life too small for her dreams. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message flashed, a name that made her chest tighten and her throat close up. Richard Drake, the billionaire. The man everyone whispered about but feared to speak against. The cold shadow who ruled industries from boardrooms to headlines, known for crushing anyone who stood in his way. And now, apparently meant to be her future husband. Her fingers trembled as the words sank in. The news didn't just come by chance. No. Elena was being forced into this marriage. A deal stamped in secrets and power, stitched with threat and desperation. The weight crashed down on her like a physical blow. How did a modest factory worker become part of this twisted, glittering world overnight? How had her family's tangled debts dragged her here? The next morning, Elena stood before the towering gates of the Drake estate. The walls loomed like cold stone giants, guarding secrets darker than the night. Inside, a hush filled the corridors. Whispers slid along polished floors, and eyes followed her every step. The servants' glances were sharp and judgmental. The air smelled of expensive wood and something faintly metallic, like a warning. Richard Drake appeared like a ghost from shadows, tall, impossibly stern, his eyes icy and unreadable. His voice was low, demanding, chilling, even when silent. Elena felt small and raw under his gaze, the sharp cut of his presence searing into her skin. But behind that ruthless exterior, was there something else? A flicker, a crack in the armor. She caught a glimpse of pain or regret, and it startled her. As the evening wore on, Elena's world twisted and turned. She heard too many hushed talks about alliances and betrayals, whispers about hidden dangers lurking behind every door. The gilded cage she had stepped into was beautiful but deadly. Every smile was a test, every silence a trap. Then she found it, a letter tucked away in an unmarked drawer, its paper yellowed and fragile but urgent. The words inside shattered her understanding. A secret connection between her family and the Drakes. Centuries old, buried deep. A history that wasn't just about money or power, but about promises, lies, and perhaps revenge. Elena's heart pounded. Her hands shook as she read the first lines. Why had this been hidden? What was she walking into? She felt torn between fear and a fierce need to uncover the truth. Was she about to become the pawn in a game she barely understood, or the player who could change everything? Something dark was coming, and Elena knew she'd have to find strength fast, or be swallowed whole by the shadows closing in around her. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Elena's heart raced, words from the letter swirling in her mind like restless ghosts. The hidden history between her family and the Drakes felt like a conjoined flame, burning fiercely but dangerously. She could almost hear the whisper of her own name in the shadows, beckoning her to dig deeper, to unravel a truth that could shatter everything she thought she knew. The estate's coldness felt suffocating. She slipped the letter into her pocket, her fingers brushing against its fragile surface. Why had this been kept from her? What had her family done to be tied to a family wrapped in whispers of fear and power? Richard's voice broke through her thoughts, low and smooth. "Elena, we need to talk." His words dripped with authority, yet there was a strange softness beneath that forced her to pay attention. She followed him into an expansive library, books lining the walls like sentinels guarding secrets. The door clicked shut behind them, the sound sinking into silence. The air thickened, and Elena could feel the tension boiling between them. "About our marriage," he began, gaze steady, yet the edge in his tone was undeniable. "It's not just a contract. It's a necessity." "Really?" she shot back, anger sparking within her. "Is that all it is? A necessity for you?" "Stop." His voice sliced through her like a knife. "I know this isn't easy for you, but there are more important things at stake. If we don't unite our families—" "Unite? You mean force me into this life?" Before he could respond, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, shattering the fragile calm. They both turned, tension snapping like a tight rope. Richard's eyes locked onto hers, a storm brewing in their depths. "Stay here," he commanded, his expression shifting, turning hard. But as he stepped toward the door, Elena felt an unsettling chill clawing at her spine. Something was wrong. It wasn't just the noise. It was the way Richard had said it, like a warning, a call to arms. She couldn't just stand idly by. She followed him, adrenaline rushing through her veins. They moved onto the main floor where chaos erupted. Guests gathered, eyes wide, expressions twisted into shock. Elena's heart dropped as she spotted someone at the center of the commotion, a familiar face. Her brother, Ben. "What are you doing here?" Elena gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Keep her back," Richard shouted. The ferocity startled her, but there was fear behind it too. Ben stood there, wild-eyed, desperation etched on his face. "They're coming for us, Elena. They know about the debts, about the deal." "Who?" Confusion curled in her stomach. Suddenly, footsteps thundered down the hall, a group of men dressed in dark suits storming into the room. Elena's breath hitched, and her pulse thundered in her ears. "Richard Drake." One of the men barked, his voice ruthless. "You know the price for betrayal." Elena's world tilted. Betrayal? What was he talking about? Richard's jaw clenched. "Get her out of here," he growled at Ben. "Not without you." Ben's voice shook with both fear and resolve. She watched as Richard stepped back, eyes glinting, a shadow of the man she thought she knew. Elena felt her heart thump painfully. What was he hiding? "I'll handle this," he said, voice low yet heavy with unspoken truths. Suddenly, the man in the lead turned to Elena. "You don't know what you've walked into, girl. This isn't just business. It's war." The air thickened with danger, confusion swirling around her like a storm. Who could she trust? Richard? Ben? Or was her own family entwined in the shadows too? One thing was clear. The truth was deeper and darker than she ever imagined. What is really going on here? Elena gasped, genuine fear now lacing her words. The room fell silent, every eye on her. The weight of the unknown pressed down, and she knew deep inside her life would never be the same. And as she looked from her brother to Richard, she realized that every secret falsehood could unravel at any moment. What had she gotten herself into? What had been hidden for so long was finally about to surface, and the consequences would reshape everything. Elena's heart raced, words still echoing in her mind like a countdown. The tension in the room felt electric, thick with uncertainty. "What is really going on here?" she gasped, her voice shaky, and suddenly the air changed. Richard's eyes narrowed, confusion flashing across his face. "Elena." But before he could finish, the sound of shattering glass rang out, piercing through the tension like a bullet. Everyone turned as a figure stumbled through the doorway, covered in blood. It was Caroline, Richard's estranged sister, the one no one ever spoke of. "Elena, help!" she cried, collapsing at Elena's feet, panting hard. Richard's face paled, turning to stone as he took a step back. This wasn't just chaos, it was a dagger into their already fractured lives. Caroline, Richard's voice broke, filled with desperation. What happened? Who did this? Darius. He knows, she gasped, her eyes wild with fear. They're after you, Richard. They think you've betrayed them. The room froze. Whispers hissed through the guests, eyes wide, hearts racing. Betrayal? The term hung in the air like a bomb about to detonate. Elena felt her stomach twist. Had Richard really deceived someone? The man she barely knew, but was now linked to by this twisted fate. But, before anyone could react, a loud thundering filled the space, and the estate doors exploded open. In stormed a group of armed men, their faces hidden behind black masks, eyes burning with malice. Get on the ground, now, one of them shouted. Panic erupted. Guests screamed, scattering like leaves in a storm. Richard turned to Elena, urgency marking his features. We have to go, now. Leave her, Ben shouted, stepping in front of Elena. You can't take her. Richard, usually so composed, looked lost. Ben, But before he could explain, Caroline sprang up, clutching a knife of her own that she had hidden beneath her dress. I won't let you take them. The crazed determination in her eyes was terrifying. Richard's hand shot out, gripping Caroline's wrist. You don't understand what you're doing. Panic pinched his voice. This isn't just about us anymore. Suddenly, one of the masked men lunged forward, and everything spiraled into chaos. Everyone back, he yelled, and in an instant they were shoving people aside, looking for something, someone. Elena could barely think. A surge of fear gripped her heart. In that moment, she couldn't tell who was friend or foe. Richard's presence loomed over her, but shadows flickered behind his cold facade. No! She screamed, a wild instinct pushing her to break free. Then, a loud bang erupted behind her, ringing through her ears. Someone had fired a shot. Elena barely registered it before chaos erupted around her. People cried out, the cacophony spiraling into a frenzy of panic. She felt Richard's grasp on her tighten as he pulled her closer. Stay with me, he shouted, his voice almost lost in the din. But who was he really? The shadow of a man she didn't know? The fear in her gut flared up, mixing with anger. The masked men continued to swarm, and in the midst of it all, a horrifying realization hit her. Caroline was screaming, thrashing. No one was safe. And then it all turned dark. She felt her world shift, like the ground had fallen from under her feet. Get down, Richard roared, and as Elena ducked, chaos swallowed them whole. The world spun into a frenzy of blur, screams muted into a haunting silence. And just like that, the last thing she saw before the darkness crashed in was the expression on Richard's face, twisted in pain yet twisting the truth. What had she gotten herself into? Everything she thought she understood was about to unravel. A web of lies, danger, and secrets left her breathless, clinging to the edges of this cruel fate, unaware of the dark truth looming just beyond the shadows. Elena's world plunged into chaos. The air turned thick, suffocating her as Richard's hand gripped her shoulder. For a moment, time stilled. She caught the flicker of fear in his eyes, the same fear that danced in her chest. Gunfire roared outside, echoing the panic swirling within. Get down, Richard shouted again, but before she could react, another loud bang reverberated through the space, stunning her. The sharp crack of glass splintering sent teeth rattling, chills down her spine. Elena hit the floor, heart racing like a war drum. But this time, the sound of chaos morphed into something different, a voice, deep and unyielding, marking its territory amid the uproar. Drake, come out and face what's yours. Every guest froze, eyes darting around, looking for answers, whispering against the screams. Then he stepped in, tall, broad and dressed in black. His presence fell over the room like a dark veil. The masked men hesitated at the sight of him, uncertainty rippling among them. Darius, Richard's voice softened, a note of something strange, fear, respect, creeping into the chill. What are you doing here? Darius's gaze locked onto Richard. You've been playing a dangerous game, brother. Didn't think I'd find out? Elena's breath hitched. Brother? She couldn't breathe. Every heartbeat pulled her deeper into a web of confusion. The sudden kinship left her reeling. More secrets? How could it be? The debts, Richard. You put us all at risk. Darius's face twisted in anger, but something deeper lurked in his eyes. Worry? No, guilt. Before the words could fully register, Richard surged forward, fists clenched. You know nothing. I had to do it for our family. What family? The one you've betrayed? Darius's voice boomed. They're coming for everything we built. Elena felt the room spin. Betrayal? The whisper sank in, deepening her dread. Could trust exist in this fractured family? Richard, a reluctant leader. Darius, a storm. And here she was, landlocked in between. Just then, Caroline lunged at Darius, knife flashing in a wild arc. You won't take him, she screamed, her determination desperate, driven by something deeper than loyalty. Their struggle sent Elena scrambling backward. The atmosphere crackled with pure terror. Darius caught Caroline's wrist, forcing the knife away. Rage turned on Richard instead, sharp words cutting deeper than any blade. This isn't just about you anymore. Elena clutched her head, confusion crystallizing into overwhelming panic. There was too much at stake, too many hidden layers. The stories were twisted, snakes of deceit coiling around the truth. And somewhere, hidden from sight, was her family's connection, the long-buried secrets threatening to consume them all. Stop! Elena's voice rang out, a desperate plea cutting through the cacophony. Just tell me what's going on. She could feel eyes shift toward her. Fear filled the room, falling heavy. Like a layer of ash, both men halted, tension slicing through the air. But then Elena caught a movement at the edge of her vision. A newcomer, smaller in stature, yet the power rippling off her was undeniable. It was Margaret, the usually demure housekeeper, stepping up. Enough, she shouted, voice cracking like thunder. Everyone turned, astonished. Margaret? Richard stammered, disbelief clouding his eyes. In all my years working here, I've watched your family teeter on the edge of destruction. But the truth, she paused, every breath heavy with the weight of 1,000 secrets. The truth is more twisted than you realize. Then she dropped the bombshell, words tumbling out with fierce urgency. Elena is not just your family's pawn. She's tied into this mess deeper than either of us. You truly know. Elena froze, confusion flooding her. What did she mean? Secrets swirled like fog, and suddenly, everything she thought she understood began to unravel. What do you mean? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Margaret locked eyes with her, desperation flickering like a candle. You are part of a legacy, Elena. A legacy we all wish was forgotten. Shock ripped through her like a lightning bolt. A legacy? Yes, and it's time you learned the truth. Margaret snapped, determination igniting her tone. But just as the weight of that revelation settled, a loud explosion shattered the building. The ground shook, debris rained down, screams erupted again, and the world distorted into chaos once more. Elena's thoughts scrambled like the dust swirling around her. Who was she? What had she gotten into? And who was truly on her side? The pieces were blurring, but one thing was certain. There was no going back now. In that moment, as everything spun out of control, she realized she needed to uncover the truth before it consumed her whole. Elena's world plunged into chaos. The air turned thick, suffocating her as Richard's hand gripped her shoulder. For a moment, time stilled. She caught the flicker of fear in his eyes, the same fear that danced in her chest. Gunfire roared outside, echoing the panic swirling within. Get down, Richard shouted again. But before she could react, another loud bang reverberated through the space, stunning her. The sharp crack of glass splintering sent teeth-rattling chills down her spine. Elena hit the floor, heart racing like a war drum. But this time, the sound of chaos morphed into something different. A voice, deep and unyielding, marking its territory amid the uproar. Drake, come out and face what's yours. Every guest froze, eyes darting around, looking for answers, whispering against the screams. Then he stepped in, tall, broad, and dressed in black. His presence fell over the room like a dark veil. The masked men hesitated at the sight of him, uncertainty rippling among them. Darius, Richard's voice softened, a note of something strange, fear, respect, creeping into the chill. What are you doing here? Darius's gaze locked onto Richard. You've been playing a dangerous game, brother. Didn't think I'd find out. Elena's breath hitched. Brother? She couldn't breathe. Every heartbeat pulled her deeper into a web of confusion. The sudden kinship left her reeling. More secrets? How could it be? The debts, Richard. You put us all at risk. Darius's face twisted in anger, but something deeper lurked in his eyes. Worry? No. Guilt. Before the words could fully register, Richard surged forward, fists clenched. You know nothing. I had to do it for our family. What family? The one you've betrayed? Darius's voice boomed. They're coming for everything we built. Elena felt the room spin. Betrayal? The whispers sank in, deepening her dread. Could trust exist in this fractured family? Richard, a reluctant leader. Darius, a storm. And here she was, landlocked in between. Just then Caroline lunged at Darius, knife flashing in a wild arc. You won't take him, she screamed, her determination desperate, driven by something deeper than loyalty. Their struggle sent Elena scrambling backward. The atmosphere crackled with pure terror. Darius caught Caroline's wrist, forcing the knife away. Rage turned on Richard instead, sharp words cutting deeper than any blade. This isn't just about you anymore. Elena clutched her head, confusion crystallizing into overwhelming panic. There was too much at stake, too many hidden layers. The stories were twisted, snakes of deceit coiling around the truth. And somewhere, hidden from sight, was her family's connection, the long-buried secrets threatening to consume them all. Stop, Elena's voice rang out, a desperate plea cutting through the cacophony. Just tell me what's going on. She could feel eyes shift toward her. Fear filled the room, falling heavy like a layer of ash. Both men halted, tension slicing through the air. But then Elena caught a movement at the edge of her vision. A newcomer, smaller in stature, yet the power rippling off her was undeniable. It was Margaret, the usually demure housekeeper, stepping up. Enough, she shouted, voice cracking like thunder. Everyone turned, astonished. Margaret? Richard stammered, disbelief clouding his eyes. In all my years working here, I've watched your family teeter on the edge of destruction. But the truth, she paused, every breath heavy with the weight of 1,000 secrets. The truth is more twisted than you realize. Then she dropped the bombshell, words tumbling out with fierce urgency. Elena is not just your family's pawn. She's tied into this mess deeper than either of you truly know. Elena froze, confusion flooding her. What do you mean? Margaret's eyes were fierce, filled with a spark of something long buried. Elena is not just a factory worker. She's the rightful heir to the Drake fortune. Gasps filled the room, shock rolling like thunder. Elena blinked, trying to comprehend. What? Yes, Margaret confirmed, pointing her finger with conviction. The true heir was hidden away to protect her from the family's dark history. But those debts you've burned yourselves with? They're tied to the legacy. You, Elena, you were meant to inherit it all. Elena's heart raced. Everything she thought she knew crumbled. The letters, the connections, the secrets, it all fell into place. But the room erupted all around her, screaming chaos, eyes wide in fear, disbelief, anger swirling like a tornado. Suddenly, a loud explosion roared from outside, rattling the windows, throwing dust and fragments into the air. The ground shook. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows as the chaos exploded around them. People screamed and scrambled, hearts racing, lives shifting. Elena grasped her head, fragments of truth breaking like glass shattering. She hadn't just walked into a world of luxury. She was at the center of a web, a secret legacy, and now there was no escaping the storm that was about to break. What's happening? she gasped, eyes darting between Richard, Darius, and the bedlam unfolding. But Richard's face clouded with horror. "If they find you—" But before he could finish his warning, another man broke through the chaos. One of the masked men from before. But this one was different. He pushed aside his hood, revealing a familiar face. Ben, Elena's breath caught, eyes wide as the world spun around her. Her brother's expression was one of fierce urgency mixed with terror. "Elena, we don't have time. They're here for you." The truth was thick in the air, tinged with the stench of dread. The facade it took so long to weave was unraveling, leaving only stark reality behind. And just like that, she stood at the brink of an uncharted mystery about to explode. What other secrets lay buried within her family's legacy? Would she be able to uncover the truth before it consumed her whole? The storm approached, and she had to decide where her loyalty truly lay. Elena's world spun chaotically. Her heart hammered as Ben's desperate gaze locked onto hers. "Elena, we don't have time. They're here for you." Panic seeped from his voice, urgent and raw. "What?" she gasped, confusion lashing through her. Richard and Darius stood frozen, tension creasing their brows. Gunfire rang out, shards of panic igniting tension. The room felt like it was collapsing around her. "Everyone stay back," Darius shouted, shielding Richard as he moved, the brothers' enmity crackling in the air. "We need to protect her. They want her." Clarity cracked through the fog, thickening her thoughts. The stakes were astronomical. But why her? She'd merely been a worker until a few minutes ago. "Why will they hurt me?" she cried out, desperation filling the gaps. "Because you're more than a pawn in this game," Darius snapped, fists clenched. "Your family, whether we like it or not." "What? Family?" That word hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Her heart raced faster, deeper confusion crashing over her like a wave. And then, another boom. A massive blast vibrated through the estate, sending a shockwave that rattled the very foundation. The doors flew wide open, and the last remnants of calm shattered as a stream of masked figures poured in. "Move!" Elena stumbled backward, eyes wide. Their faces were obscured under tight balaclavas, but their intent was clear, lethal and unyielding. "Get her!" one of them barked, pointing straight at Elena. She turned to Richard, his expression transformed from icy to frantic. "Elena, come with me!" he shouted. But it was Ben who stepped in front of her, panic dancing in his eyes. "No, you can't take her." Suddenly, a flash of something metallic caught her eye. The intruder in front of her drew a weapon, and everything exploded into a blur. "Get down," Richard bellowed, shoving Elena to the floor, as chaos erupted, gunfire ringing like thunder, ricocheting off the ornate walls. Elena pressed against the cool floor, her breath trapped in her chest. From her vantage point, she could barely grasp the scene unfolding above. Richard stood over her, fists clenched, a guardian in a collapsing world. But all she could think was, this can't be happening. In the turmoil, Darius lunged at one of the masked men, a blur of muscle and rage. But just as he struck, another figure stepped from the shadows, a woman, her hair wild but strikingly familiar. It was Caroline, Richard's estranged sister. "Elena!" Caroline shouted, rushing past the chaos, eyes wild with fear. "You need to know the truth!" But before Elena could respond, Caroline's form glowed with a sudden flash of light, revealing to Elena's stunned eyes a truth that twisted the very foundation of her reality. "I'm not what I seem," Caroline exclaimed, breathless, hands raised as she forced the masked men to halt in their steps. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm not just Richard's sister. I'm your mother." Time stopped. Elena's heart dropped hard into her stomach, the world around her fading in and out. Her mind couldn't unravel the implications. This couldn't be right. It felt like a punch to her very soul. Gasps echoed through the room, her brother's expression shifting from protective to shocked disbelief. "What? No!" Ben shouted, face twisting with confusion. "Yes!" Caroline's voice was firm, determined. "You were taken to protect you from our family's legacy. But it's time to reclaim what's rightfully yours, Elena." Elena's grip tightened on the floor, her breath quickening. No, this can't. I have a mother? Just as those words left her lips, another explosion roared, rattling everything. Debris fell, smoke choked the air, and the level of betrayal and danger sharpened like a blade. "Follow me now," Richard shouted, urgency blazing in his eyes. "They're here for more than just her. We need to escape." Elena looked between them, her half-brother, the mother she never knew, and the man she was supposed to marry. Questions swirled in her mind like a vicious hurricane. Surely in this storm of lies and blood, the truth was lurking somewhere. But just as they were about to move, a figure emerged from the darkness, masked but unmistakably familiar. It was Margaret, eyes blazing. "You've all been used, and now everything is about to change." Elena's heart raced with fear and disbelief. In this moment, she was caught inside a web of entangled truths. What had she gotten herself into? Who could she trust? And could the full weight of her family's legacy really be the key to her survival? The room echoed with uncertainty, and in the chaos, she realized one thing. Nothing would ever be the same again. She was at the center of a storm, and as the walls crumbled around her, all she could do was brace for the unknown. Elena stood in a whirlwind of chaos, eyes darting between Richard, Ben, and Caroline. Everything seemed to tremble. The echoes of gunfire still rang in her ears, but Margaret's revelation hung in the air like a bitter taste. She couldn't grasp what was really happening. "Please, just tell me," she started. But before she could finish, another explosion rocked the estate. A cloud of dust and debris rained down, blinding her for a moment. She squinted against the chaos, trying to see past the muddled panic. Richard shoved her behind him, face taut with determination. "We need to move." Ben looked ready to argue, but Caroline interjected. "It's time you all knew the truth." She breathed heavily, her eyes darting nervously. "There's more than just the legacy. The debts were a cover-up for something far darker." Elena felt her heart race. "What do you mean?" Before Caroline could answer, another figure burst into the room, a tall man, wearing a suit stained with blood, staggered in like a wounded animal. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She could hardly believe her eyes. "Adam," she whispered, recognizing Richard's former business partner, the one rumored to have gone missing. He lifted his head, eyes wild with fear. "It's worse than we thought," he gasped, clutching a blood-soaked shirt. "Darius and Richard, they're not just brothers. They're part of a family we didn't even know existed." "What?" Elena's stomach dropped. She looked at Richard. Betrayal flooded his features. But Adam continued, breathless. "They have a sister who's orchestrated everything, manipulated both families against each other, planting seeds of distrust. She's been pulling strings behind the scenes." Suddenly all eyes turned on Caroline. Her face went pale. "No, it can't be." Adam nodded, voice trembling. "She's the one who set fire to the family legacy. She wanted to build her own empire, using both families as her pawns. Elena, you have to believe me. Caroline isn't who she says she is. She's more dangerous than any of us realized." A hushed silence swept over the room. The air thickened with tension. Caroline's eyes hardened, and for a moment, Elena thought she saw something sinister flicker in her mother's gaze. "You think you know everything." "Adam," Caroline said, her voice low and dangerous. "This is just the beginning." "No!" Richard shouted, stepping forward defiantly. "You've crossed a line, Caroline. We trusted you." Caroline chuckled darkly. "And that was your mistake. Protecting Elena? You've made her a target." Heart pounding, Elena took a step back. "How could you do this?" But before anyone could respond, the estate's front door crashed open again. In poured more masked men, their weapons raised. "Get her," one screamed, locking eyes with Elena. Without thinking, Ben pushed her toward Richard. "Run, we'll hold them off." "No, we can't leave you," Elena begged, but Richard's grip tightened on her arm. "We have to go now." She looked at her brother, torn apart by the chaos. "Ben, please, just get out." He shouted, smoke filling the air. "I'll find you," Richard pulled her through the throng of chaos. They stumbled toward a hidden door behind the library, its wooden frame splintered but still standing. As they burst through, the sound of shouts and gunshots faded behind them. But as they entered the darkened hallway, a shadow stepped in front of them, and Elena's heart sank lower than ever before. It was Darius, grinning as if he'd won a battle. "Going somewhere? What do you want from us?" Richard snapped, fists raised. "You can't take her." "Who says you're the one calling the shots?" Darius's smile turned cruel. "This was just a warm-up. The game has only just begun." Elena shivered. Trust? It felt like a distant memory in the face of this dizzying betrayal. Just when she thought she understood who was on her side, it shattered completely. "Shut up!" Richard yelled, but Darius pressed forward, eyes ablaze with a twisted ambition. As they stood there, caught in a web of treachery, Elena felt the icy grip of fear tighten around her heart. Everything she thought she knew was slipping away. This was not just about family. It was a war, a battle for power, control, and legacy. And then, with a sudden spin, the weight of her entire life, the lies, secrets, and masked truths, crashed down. Who was the real villain? Was it Caroline? Darius? Richard, her supposed protector? The answers loomed, just below the surface, ready to spiral out of control. Will you fight for what's yours, Elena? Or will you let it slip away? Darius taunted, leaving her shaking with uncertainty. "Where do we go from here?" she whispered, feeling the storm close in around her, choices crushing her with every passing second. As shadows lingered and darkness grew, one question gnawed at her heart. Was anyone truly safe? Elena's breath quickened, her heart pounding in her chest. Darius stood before her, his grin twisting into something dark and unfathomable. The weight of his words suffocated her. What did he mean by being family? She had already lost so much. The truth was a knife cutting deeper every moment. Richard stepped in front of her again, fists tight, eyes blazing. "You won't hurt her." His voice commanded authority, but Elena caught the flicker of doubt behind his bravado. "Why not? Family ties mean nothing when power is at stake," Darius shot back, each word a calculated bullet aimed at their hearts. He seemed to relish the chaos, the tension filling the room like thick smoke. "You think you know everything, but you're blind to what's really happening." Elena's vision blurred. "What's happening?" she gasped, clutching the edges of the table for support. The air felt thick with confusion. Suddenly, Caroline stepped forward, her face twisted in alarm. "Darius, stop this!" An unexpected roar tore through the room. The masked men froze in place, eyes darting toward the entrance. The sound of rushing footsteps echoed down the corridor, heavy and deliberate. "Get back!" one of the intruders shouted, panic ricocheting off the walls. Elena's heart raced, fear pounding. In her ears, the figures were closing in. Then the door burst open, flooding the space with noise. But it wasn't the masked men who entered. It was a woman, tall and commanding. Her presence filled the room. Elena squinted, trying to recognize her face among the chaos. Had she seen this woman before? And then it hit her. Victoria Drake, the enigmatic matriarch Richard had mentioned, but always kept hidden. The chaos around her faded into a distant hum. Every eye turned to Victoria. Waiting, wondering. "Enough," she shouted, her voice booming with icy authority. "You're all acting like children." Darius smirked, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "Mother, isn't it time you told them what you've been hiding?" Elena felt the world tilt. What could this woman unveil that would change everything again? Victoria advanced, her gaze piercing through the tension. "You think you understand the game we're playing?" She paused, locking eyes with Richard. "You were never meant to lead, Richard. And this girl," she motioned toward Elena, "this girl is the key to our survival. She must choose." "Choose what?" Elena's voice cracked. The shadows and secrets piled higher, obscuring the truth. "Choose," Victoria echoed, her voice softening into something almost tender. "The legacy you inherit, and whether you stand with us or against us. Darius stepped forward, eyes glinting with cruel excitement. You know the truth, Elena. You must decide if you'll align with your family's power, or if you'll let it slip through your fingers. But before Elena could respond, Victoria's expression shifted, a flicker of anguish crossing her face. It's not just about family. There were mistakes I made. Her voice trembled, and the confidence seemed to fracture. Things that led us all to this moment. In that instance, the air thickened again, confusion wrapping around her like chains. What mistakes? But before Victoria could answer, another figure appeared behind her, tall and menacing, a man Elena recognized. Stop right there. Her body froze. It was Marcus, the man who had been entangled in the family's shady dealings, the one who had haunted her parents' past. The air turned electric, every eye glued to him. Marcus, she breathed. What are you doing here? He grinned, a smile full of malice. You really thought you could just walk away from this? Legacy? You're all pawns on the board, and it's time to play. Everything clicked into place, the puzzle pieces shifting dramatically. You? The truth hit her hard like a physical blow. You've been pulling the strings this whole time. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a flash drive. Let me introduce you to the real game. It's a little surprise that will change everything you think you know about your family and you. Tension thickened in the air, hearts pounding like war drums. What lay on that drive? Could it hold the key to a truth that would uncover everything? Her breath caught, heart racing. Just as she reached for clarity, Darius stepped forward, face twisted with a manic glee. Elena, let's see how far down this rabbit hole goes. And suddenly, Elena found herself at a crossroads, the ground shifting beneath her feet. Everything she believed, everyone she thought she knew, flickered in the shadows. Who am I truly? What am I really up against? She whispered, eyes wide with fear and determination. As the room exploded with noise, the fates of all intertwined, Elena felt the weight of the world hanging in precarious balance. Choices loomed like specters, waiting to be made, the truth just out of reach. Elena stood there, her heart racing, trapped in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Darius's grin twisted into something darker. You must decide if you'll align with your family's power, or if you'll let it slip through your fingers. His words hung in the air, thick with tension. Standing back, she felt the prickle of dread crawl up her spine. Richard's protective stance around her felt less solid by the second. Just as she tried to process it all, another loud explosion shook the room. Dust filled the air, stinging her eyes. Shouts exploded from all sides, drowning everything out in chaos. "Get down!" Richard yelled, his voice barely reaching her amidst the cacophony. They huddled in the corner, watching the chaos unfold. But then, unexpectedly, in the midst of all this turmoil, a figure burst through the door. Emerging from the shadows, it was someone Elena never expected to see. Dad? Her heartbeat drummed loudly in her ears. Jack Carter, her estranged father, stepped into view, eyes wild, drenched in sweat. "Elena, you have to trust me," he shouted, voice cracking. Shock skidded through her like ice. "You're here? Why, how?" But Jack cut off her questions with an urgency that made her stomach drop. "You're not safe here. We need to leave, now. They'll kill us all if they find out the truth." The truth? What truth? Confusion spiraled within her. Richard shot Jack a furious glare. "You have no right to be here. You made your choices." Ignoring him, Jack stepped closer, sweat dripping down his brow as he scanned the room. Eyes filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Listen, Elena, I didn't want this for you. Not now, not ever. It's not just about the Drake family. There's more at stake." She opened her mouth to respond, to ask why he was here. After abandoning her, but Darius stepped forward, eyes glimmering with malevolence. "And you think you can protect her? You were never meant to be in her life." Suddenly, a crunching sound echoed, a fist slamming down on the table. "You tell me what's at stake," Richard shouted, keeping his eyes on Jack with a fervor that promised violence. The anger boiled between them, electricity crackling in the air. Jack threw his hands up in surrender. I'm trying to warn you, you don't know what she really is. Every face turned toward Elena, questions swirling in the air, and for a split second, time stood still. No one spoke. It felt like she was a loose thread unraveling, the reality spinning out of control. What do you mean? She whispered. Fear, gripping her tightly. And then the walls began to shake and the room pulsed with uncertainty. Jack's eyes widened. You don't understand. Your mother was a descendant of the Drakes. You're not just a factory worker, Elena. You're the legitimate heir to both families. You hold the keys to their past and their future. Elena staggered back, her brain reeling. What? No, that can't be true. Oh, but it is, Jack insisted, stepping closer, desperation clawing in his eyes. All this time, they've kept it hidden from you. You were meant to unite the families, end the feud. Shut up, Richard roared, but Elena stood frozen, her world tilting again. This was too much to process. She felt the air thicken around her. Betrayal, family, legacy, choices. Then why does everyone want me dead? She cried out, fists clenched tight. Because the truth will destroy everything they built. Jack shouted back, voice rising over the chaos like a war cry. He turned and looked directly at her, determination blazing in his expression. You are the one who can bring peace, but you have to fight for it. As if on cue, Darius stepped forward, eyes narrowing. You think they'll allow that? The moment they discover anything, they'll come for you. Just then, a loud thud boomed from the entrance, shaking the room once more. Elena's breath caught in her throat. They weren't safe. In a final act of defiance, Jack lunged forward, his hand reaching for Elena's. We have to go now, or it's over. But before she could make her choice, a flicker of movement caught her eye. From the shadows emerged Caroline, eyes glassy and filled with fury. You're not taking her. The room exploded into chaos, screams, shouts, confusion swirling around her. The shocking unknown echoed in her ears. Who was truly her ally and who was her enemy? Choose, Elena. The words hung in the air, stinging like a whip crack. What was the right choice? And could she really carry the weight of legacy that felt miles away? She had to decide who would live and who would die. The truth lingered just out of reach, buried deeper in family secrets. And time was running out. Elena's heart raced, fear gripping her as chaos escalated around her. The faces surrounding her twisted in urgent confusion. Richard, Darius, Ben, and her estranged father, Jack. Enough, she shouted over the noise, voice trembling but fierce. Everyone needs to stop and listen. All eyes turned to her. An electrifying silence hung in the air. If we're going to survive this, we need to work together. No more lies, no more secrets. Richard stepped forward, tension etched in his face. You really think we can trust Darius? Are you kidding? Darius shot back, fists clenched. You don't even know your own family. You're the blind one here, Richard. Elena took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. Darius might have his motives, but right now, we need to focus on what matters. The bigger threat is out there, and they won't hesitate to destroy us. Every word struck like lightning. The urgency hung heavy, but Jack nodded, eyes glistening with pride. She's right. We don't have time to bicker. We need to unite against this because they'll come for us all. Just then, Caroline lunged again, spitting venom. You think you're all so clever, but you have no idea what you're up against. You're all pawns. Elena felt the weight settle heavily on her shoulders. Caroline, you had a chance to be a mother, yet you've let us down. Tension crackled like a live wire. Suddenly, the chaos outside intensified. Gunfire erupted, pulling them back to urgency. Get to the underground tunnel, Jack shouted, eyes wide. It's our only way out. Without hesitating, they grabbed each other's hands and rushed toward the hidden passage. Shadow and dust engulfed them as they descended, every heartbeat echoing against stone walls. The air was stale, stale like old memories. In the murky darkness, Elena felt a flicker of resolve. We're not going to let this legacy define us. We're here to reclaim it, she breathed, her voice steady. Whoever we are, we face it together. Emerging into the dim light of a hidden chamber, she caught a glimpse of a map plastered on the wall, detailing hidden routes and underground connections. This could lead us out safely, she said, urgency gripping her chest. Wait, what is this? Richard leaned closer, brow. It's our chance to outsmart them. The group rallied around the map, the weight of their survival pressing down on them as time slipped away. But a voice echoed in the distance, a haunting whisper of danger. Move! Ben shoved Elena forward, adrenaline surging. They pressed on through the winding tunnels, heartbeats echoing like war drums. Suddenly, an explosion echoed from above. A rush of air surged past them, and dust choked the passageway. This way, Jack yelled, sprinting ahead. Elena stumbled, panic swirling, but she felt Richard's hand on her back, guiding her with warmth. Stay close. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a clearing behind the estate. Fresh air hit them like a wave, and it held the promise of freedom, but they weren't out of danger yet. Figures loomed in the distance, weapons raised. Go, I'll hold them off, Ben shouted, panic flashing in his eyes as he stepped in front of them. No, we can't leave you, Elena cried, but the resolve in Ben's eyes was stronger than her fear. Trust me, I'll find you. With one last glance, they bolted toward the line of trees, hearts pounding in sync as sirens blared, chaos erupting behind them. As they disappeared into the cover of darkness, adrenaline consumed her. They would survive, fight their fate, and uncover the truth together. They had become something more than a family divided by deception. They were warriors forged in the storm, ready to reclaim their legacy. And as the dawn broke, rays of light illuminating their path, they felt the weight lift. Hope flickered, fragile yet unwavering. This was just the beginning. The battle ahead would be fierce, but together they would rise like the sun, stronger than the shadows that sought to keep them down. Now is the time for you to join this incredible journey. You have to subscribe right now to the channel, so you don't miss any of the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about what happened. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Your support matters, and only real fans understand the importance of keeping this community alive.